Hello students, myself Shefa Shah from IT department, and we are going to continue with our processor and controller series. And in the last session, we have discussed and completed a topic related to the timers of Atmega 32. In today's session, we are going to cover a new topic, that is interrupts of AVR. Right? So today's topic that is based on AVR interrupts, and we will see what are the basic concepts related to the interrupts, right? So let's start with the topic, that is interrupt. Now when we talk about the interrupt, right, so there are two names for the interrupt, where we first, that is the interrupt, and second, which we are using for the ancient methods for the processors, that is called as polling. So basically, what is interrupt and what is polling? So here, as you can see on the screen, here it has been shown the difference between, basic difference between the interrupt and the polling, right? So first column says that what is the basis for the comparison, second, that is the interrupt, and third, that is the polling. Right now, when we talk about the interrupt and polling, the first, for what is the basic for what is basic of interrupt? So device notifies CPU that it needs the CPU attention, whereas in polling, because CPU constantly checks and states whether it needs the CPU attention or not. So whenever there is a attention needed for the CPU, the interrupt is activated, and at that particular time only we need to check that what kind of service is needed by the CPU. Whereas when we talk about the polling, so polling always constantly checks this cycle, that whenever the CPU is right now in work or it need the attention, right? So it wastes the time in the polling. Whereas when we talk about the interrupt, it will saves the time, and whenever it will require, it will just notify it to the CPU. Then, second, that is what is the mechanism of interrupt. So interrupt is a hardware mechanism, where polling is a protocol. Then when we talk about the servicing, so interrupt handle service is the device, whereas the polling, in polling, the CPU services the device. Then how does it indicates that interrupt has been activated or not? So interrupt request, we can user can send the interrupt request on the processor or controller on which it is working. So the processor and controller right now stops that particular task which is right now going on, and then it will handles the interrupt subroutine, and that particular task is completed after that, right? Whereas when we talk about the polling, so command ready bit indicates that the device needs the servicing. Now next we see that is based on the CPU. So in interrupt becomes inefficient when device keep on interrupting the CPU repeatedly, right? Whereas polling becomes inefficient when CPU rarely finds a device for the service. That means whenever if frequently interrupt is required, so at that particular time, polling is the best way to check that the CPU needs the servicing or not. But if the CPU needs its work for on the rarely basis, on that particular time the interrupt is beneficial, right? And what is the example of interrupt and polling? So let's talk about the example of interrupt. So let the bell ring, then open the door to check who has come, right? So this is the basic example, that whenever the bell rings, we will go and see that who has come to our home, right? But whenever what does the same example polling states that without ringing a bell, we continuously open the door and check that anyone has come or no, right? So that is based on the polling, right? So this is the basic difference between the interrupt and the polling, right? Right now all the processor and controllers have different types of interrupt, based on either they have internal interrupts where generated from the timer, or based on their external interrupts which are generated with the user. Now first, when we talk about the interrupt, so as we have discussed, so interrupt, what does the interrupt do? So whenever the CPU or controller is right now processing a task, and whenever there is a requirement that another subroutine or another task is in queue and requires the more efficient way to program it earlier, so that particular program is written into a subroutine which is called as interrupt service routine, which is ISR. So for every interrupt, there must be an interrupt service routine, that is ISR, or interrupt handler, where the program of interrupt has been written. When an interrupt is invoked, the microcontroller runs the interrupt service routine. Generally, in most microprocessors, for every interrupt, there is a fixed location in memory that holds the address of the ISR. So each and every interrupt for the particular microcontroller has given the predefined address, and with the help of address we can locate that particular ISR, right? And that particular address is, it is called as IVT, that is the interrupt vector table, right? So the group of memory locations set aside to hold the address of ISR is called as interrupt vector table. Now, as you can see in this table, right here, it's shown as the interrupt vector table, where there are the various forms of interrupt over here on the left hand side, and based on this interrupt, the memory location has been allocated to this, right? So from here we are using this reset, that means whenever the program is resetted or controller is reset, the program counter jumps to the location, top of the location, which is 0000, right? So reset have the ROM location 000. Then there are three external interrupts, that is the INT0, INT1 and INT2 for ATmega32. So they have the interrupt address 2, 4 and 6 respectively. Then there is a three timers. So based on timers, they have the two modes, that is normal mode and the compare mode. So whenever it is a compare mode, it timer 2 of compare mode having the address 8, and timer 2 having a overflow flag having an address 8. Then timer 1, again A and B both are there, so E and 10. Then timer 1 overflow having a value 12. Then timer 0 compare match having a value 14. And timer 0 or overflow having a value 16, right? So these of interrupts we will use in our interrupt programming, right? And rest of the interrupts are used for the SPI USART analog converter, right? So these are the various interrupts which we are using in our ATmega30, right? Out of this interrupts we will use the timer interrupts and external interrupts in our syllabus, right? Now, what are the different steps in executing the interrupts? How interrupt can be written in the ISR value, ISR table, and how it can be executed. So upon activation of interrupt, the microcontroller goes through the following steps. First step, that it finishes the instruction it is currently executing and saves the address of the next instruction on the stack, that is the program counter, right? It jumps to a fixed location of a memory called the interrupt vector table, where that particular interrupt has been called, right? This interrupt vector table directs the microcontroller to the address of interrupt service routine. So whenever, let's say, there is a interrupt to timer 0, right? So timer 0 having the value having a some address, so on that particular address the ISR for the timer 0 has been written over there, right? So whenever it will go interrupt has been requested, it will generate to the timer 0, and from the interrupt vector table the address will be fetched for the timer 0 overflow, and that on that particular address it will jump and run out the interrupt service routine, right? The microcontroller starts the execute the interrupt service routine until it reaches the last instruction, and last instruction of always subroutine will be RETI, that is written from the interrupt, right? First in the one instruction RET, which we have seen with the call. Similar, it is whenever we are using the interrupt, we are using this RETI, that is written from the interrupt. So what does it will do? This written from the interrupt will return to the main program, right, where where the next instruction to be executed, right? Upon executing the RETI instruction, the microcontroller returns to the place where it was interrupted. First, it gets the program counter address from the stack by popping to the top bytes of the stack into the PC. So it will get out the address to the program counter loaded with the program counter which was stored in the stack, right? And then it executes to start the main program, right? So these are the various steps which for executing the interrupt, right? Now, sources of interrupts in the AVR. What are the different sources for the AVR in ATmega32? So from the vector table, we have defined that there are various sources such as external interrupts. Then there is an interrupts with the help of timers. Then interrupts for the USART, interrupts for the SPI bus, interrupt for the analog digital, that is ADC. Right? So these are the various interrupts which we have used in the So from that particular sources interrupt can be generated. So there are many sources of interrupts in the AVR depending on which the peripheral is incorporated into chip. The following are the some of the most widely used sources of interrupts in the AVR. So what are the interrupts of AVR? So first, there are at least two interrupts set aside for each timer, that is one for overflow and one for compare match, right? So there are total three timers. So each timer will have the two interrupts, one that is for the overflow flag and one for that is the compare flag, right, on which the two timers are working. Then there are three external hardware interrupts, that is INT0, INT1 and INT2, which are based on the INT0 is based on the PD3, PD2, that is port D second bit, alternate functions. Then INT1 is on PD3, that is port D third bit, and INT2 is based on the PB2, that is port B second bit, right? Then there is a serial communication interrupts, which is USART, which has the three interrupts, one for receive and two for the transmit. Then fourth, that is for the SPI interrupts, right? That is serial peripheral interface. And last, fifth, that is for the ADC interrupt, that is analog to digital converter, right? So these are the various sources of interrupts of at Mega 32 through which the interrupt can be generated. Out of which we are going to see of the how to generate an interrupt with the help of timers, and how to generate an interrupt with the external interrupts, right? Now, next, that is how you can enable or disable the interrupt. So in the third chapter, we have studied about the status register of AVR, right? So in that particular status register, there was a seventh bit which stands for capital I, that is the global interrupt, right? On that particular session, we have discussed that this is a global interrupt, and whenever we need to enable or disable the interrupt, this particular bit, which is capital I on the seventh bit, should be enabled, right? So and how to enable this enable and disable the interrupts? So enable and disable can be done with the help of the seventh bit of the status register. So upon reset, all the interrupts are disabled, meaning that none will be responded by the controller if they are activated. The interrupts must be enabled by software in order to microcontroller to respond to them. The seventh bit of status register is responsible for enabling and disabling the interrupts. So if we want to enable the interrupt, we need to use the instruction SEI, that is set interrupt, in the assembly language, right? And SEI parenthesis in the C language, right? In the small cases, right? Whenever we need to clear that particular interrupt or disable the interrupt, we need to use the instruction CLI in capital for the assembly language and CLI parenthesis in the C language, right, for enabling and disabling the interrupt. And due to these two instructions, we can enable and disable the interrupts, and we can only after enabling the interrupt, we can use the various interrupts which are shown in the interrupt vector table, right? Now, so what are the different steps for enabling the interrupt? So to enable any one of the interrupts, we must take the following steps. So first step, that is the bit 7 of the status register, that is capital I, must be set, that is high, which with the help of instruction SEI, that is set interrupt instruction. If I is equal to 1, each interrupt is enabled by setting by high the interrupt enable I flag bit of the interrupt, right? Now, there are some IO registers holding the interrupt vector bits. This interrupt vector bits, right, based on the timer overflow flag, what are the different flags which through which the interrupt can be enabled and interrupt can be generated. So it is given in the TIMSK register, that is timer interrupt mask register, right, which we will see in the next slide. So it must be noted that I is equal to 0, so no interrupt will be responded even if the interrupt enable is high, right? So whenever in the timers we are monitoring the TOV flag, OCF flag, right, based on the comparison mode, right? Similarly, for the interrupt, we are monitoring the TOI0 flag, TOE0 flag, which has been given in the TIMSK register. So next we are based on this we are continuing with the topic, that is TIMSK, that is timer interrupt mask register. So now as you can see on the figure, right, there is a total TIMSK register, again a 8-bit register, right, and each register will have the timer interrupts based on the overflow mode as well as on the compare mode. So as you can see on the D0 bit, it is having the TOIE0 mode, that is timer 0 overflow interrupt flag enabled. So whenever we are writing a program based on the timer and using the concept of interrupt, then we are monitoring this TOI0 flag instead of TOV0 flag which we are using in the timer program, right? Similarly, when we are using the compare mode, so OCIE0, that is the output compare mode for the zeroth timer. Then again for the 2-bit, that is for TOIE1, that is timer 1 overflow flag. Then output compare for A and B. Then TIEC1, that is input capture flag for the timer 1. And last 2 bits, that is the timer overflow for the timer 2 and output compare mode for the timer 2. So whenever we are writing the program for the interrupt based on the timer, then we are using this TIMSK register for monitoring either whether it is overflow or not, and based on this we are making the count enable, right, and we are generating the delay, right. So that's all for the today's session, right. Here we have discussed about the basics of interrupts, how interrupt can be generated, what are the different steps through which the interrupt can be generated, and what is to be monitored for the interrupts when we are using the timer, that is the TIMSK register, right. Now in the next session we are going to discuss about the different programs which we have written for the timer. Same thing we will written using this interrupt, right. So using assembly language, how we can write the program for the interrupt, right. So that's all for the today's session. We will meet in the next session. Thank you for watching.